There, Dr. Charlie here. Welcome to today. Let us take our 3 deep breaths and get started for today. Breathe in all the way into the bottom of your belly. Fill it up like a balloon and release. Breathe in. Release that water balloon. One more time, breathe into the bottom of your belly. Big Buddha belly. And release. On my mind today is the idea of really, I guess, recovering from everything, but also reevaluating and figuring out what the next piece of the plan is. I thrive with a plan. I thrive when I have something to come back to. You can see behind me, oh, wrong hand, right? You can see behind me, there's a couple of lists on my wall that absolutely counts as a decoration for me. But those lists have been my goals. There's one list for still wrong hand, right? There's one list for a Instagram project I have going called We Love Noting. And the goal is that each month I speak into existence through love notes 25 times. 25 is my goal. I really just invite people to do one about a particular theme. And then there are 2 more lists, but I think you can only see one of them. The top of the, there we go. So the top list there are my monthly goals, and it's broken down into 7 to 10 steps. And then the bottom list is for these Charlie chats and an article series I had been working on LinkedIn called Transpersonal Is. You can go and check those out. There's a good number of articles up. And then this year happened, and most of those lists got hijacked. There was a whole maybe 6-week period where I wasn't doing anything with We Love Noting, my Love Note project. I haven't written an article for LinkedIn since, I think the first 2 months are filled in, January and February, but really those 2 articles got published in maybe March and May. So I haven't written for LinkedIn in this thing that I said was a goal of mine. I haven't written for that in several months at this point, a lot of months at this point. And the individual goals that are parsed out at the top there, that the 2 at the top, the one at the top, those, there are months where it has just gone blank. Around my birthday, which is at the end of the calendar year, I created all these sheets and I printed them out and I colored them and made them not super pretty. I feel like I color like a 5-year-old, so I'm a little self-conscious about that most of the time. But just they got me playing with color a bit. And now none of that has happened, and I'm not really scrambling, but just reevaluating what's important for the remainder of this year. That's actually this month's theme over on Instagram. We Love Noting. Dear remainder of this year. This year is 2020 as I'm taping it live, but whatever year this is for you, I imagine you didn't get to this video by accident. Well, I know that for a fact, but I imagine that perhaps you may be going through something. And so, dear remainder of the year. And the idea there is to seed what it is I'd like to see happen. And at my personal level, at the collective level, what do you want to envision, create, seed? What is calling to your spirit? Perhaps you've been home for 7 or 8 months, and what has come into focus, maybe crystal clear focus, is what is important and what is less important. If you have been spending all this time with your family when normally you had breaks, that was broken up into smaller chunks, perhaps you have great insights about your family members and also yourself. What do you need? What is important to you to seed going forward? Understand that 2020 is simultaneously a it's a really good build a foundation year. In numerology, you would add up those digits, and that's just really two twos and two zeros. So 2 and 2 is 4. 4 is really stable. If you think about a box, a square has 4 sides and 4 foundational sides. So that's really what 2020 is about. And if you have been not under a rock in 2020 and it has been very chaotic, that's how you get big new things, is by shaking up and shaking down and shaking out the old things, which I'm clear that many of the old things aren't working and haven't been working perhaps ever, and simultaneously have been working exactly how they're designed to work. That's a whole long other discussion that I'm not going to get into right this moment. But really taking my year back, I can't control anything but myself and my attitude and my thoughts and the way that I move about in the world. That's the one thing I can do something about, regardless of what else is happening. So I'm tired of being in like the blah and complaining space. And a funny thing about me and complaining, if you know me professionally, I'm generally known as not being a complainer. Complaining is, I've let you in a little bit or a lot, depending on what I'm complaining about. And so me complaining about things is a sign of trust, if that makes sense at all. But as I look back, I've just been complaining for probably 8 months or more. And whining a little bit and just like, not quite woe is me, but not exactly expecting what, this isn't what I expected for this particular point in my life. And really working through that, though. That is a skill set I have, is how do you get through this difficult thing? How do you sit in its ugliness, sit in its difficultness, and get through it to the other side? And part of that, a large part of that, are both of my graduate degrees. One in women's spirituality, where I basically sat in women's ritual for 2 years straight. And then my doctorate is in integral and transpersonal psychology, which is kind of sitting in your own stuff writ large at a larger and collective level. What does this look like out in the world? So those are skills that I do have, and they're still uncomfortable for me. What I know with deep clarity is that the other side is glorious, but you got to get through it first. At the end of the last 2 years of my dissertation process, I understood also with deep clarity that the only way out was through. At that point in a doctoral process, you're either going to give up completely and then, the mountain of debt will come roaring at you anyway with no degree, or you're going to figure out how to sit in your own stuff and work through it. And sometimes working through it is just sitting there until something else comes to you. Just sitting there until an idea filters through. The stillness is where those ideas filter through. The taking the nap when you're tired is how the idea comes to you, because our brains are so habitually, indoctrinated, I guess, to being busy. There's so much about busyness. We, in the United States and similar countries, or maybe previously similar, the United States has always functioned like this. Like, let's be real clear about that. It just now there is a great showman in the White House. And so what that great showman does is like, you want to see this other thing? That was terrible, but it's the way things have always been done. So let me be clear about that. But under the pretense of what the United States is supposed to function like, other countries similar to the United States, the idea of this, like, I can control rigid structure and I can do the knowing and I can know all the knowing, and that is literally impossible. But what is praised, what is put to the forefront, is the idea of this like martyr level busyness, where you must be doing all the things all the time, get your hustle on, do 5,000 things, and shine, and I don't take no breaks. What? I don't want to work 75 hours a day. I don't want to work 75 hours a week. So really coming through, but that is a skill. It's a skill to have to unlearn that, to de-learn that, and parse yourself back out to your component parts, and then find a new way to integrate those parts. I assure you that some of the things you thought were component parts no longer fit, and they don't really have a space. When was the last time you examined your story? Hmm. That's a big question, and I think I will leave us with that. When was the last time you examined your story? Perhaps now is a good time. Maybe just one step at a time. Maybe understanding that you have a story and you've been telling a story is the first step. Then maybe you see what's in that story. And then where did that come from? Get curious about your story. Why is that something I think I believe? And then does that show up in my outer world? I am a strong believer that your deepest beliefs, your deepest fears, all of that, the things you believe very deeply at your core is how you experience the world, is what shows up in your world. So what is reflecting back to you? That will give you good keys and hints as to what story you are telling yourself. And my question to you is, does that story work? Is it time to rewrite your narrative? Is it time to update the memoir of your life? Is it time to reconstruct your story? Until we meet again, I'm Dr. Charli. Take great care.